All right, we're finally here at the Boxell family reunion, and you've
Finally.
been involved in getting the whole thing planned. Tell us about all the stuff you've gone through.
We met last year at Julie and Glenn's house, and we met a side of the Boxell family that we had not met before,
Okay.
and started to plan this reunion so that we could share our family genealogy information.
And you've got a huge turnout today.
About 100 people, I believe.
Wow, and that's a lot of folks for a first turnout.
That's very good.
And we're here where at Howard Lake?
This is Howard Lake City Park.
Yeah, and why are we here in Howard Lake?
This is where the family homestead, family farm was, and this is where the murder took place.
So it's interesting to find out what people in the family know about this or don't know about this, right?
Right, it was never solved. So there are theories, and we will find more information today, hopefully.
So as we interview different family members, we'll ask a little bit about what they know about those kinds of things and,
I guess.
find out about it.
Right.
So you're excited to have everybody here
It's great. I'm very excited.
to see it all come together.
Right.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks, Kat.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. I just zoomed in the camera, so you guys are good.
Oh, it's way over there.
So, all right, we got that. Just so that when I go to edit,
Oh,
I know
yes.
who's who.
Thanks, Sandy. All right.
Yeah. So, what we want to do is just kind of introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about how you're involved in the family and the whole event, and why we've got this going on today, and things like that. So this is Sandy.
Sandy Amundsen Smith, and I am the youngest daughter and only daughter of Edith Boxell, who was the youngest daughter of Robert Boxell. And Robert is one of the boys who was out fishing the night of W.T. and Rachel's murder. And the two boys came back and found the bodies, and so kind of the story went from there.
And it's a mystery that hasn't been solved yet, right?
Unsolved. That's right. Yeah, unsolved in the state of Minnesota, completely unsolved in our family. So we may be able to solve it, right?
Yeah. So, and introduce yourself.
I'm Michelle Davis. I'm married to Neil Davis.
I'm Neil.
This is my son.
Chris.
Ben.
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 Okay.
But Thomas is missing today.
Thomas is missing today. Where is Thomas?
He's at home working.
At home working. Yeah, got to do that kind of stuff. My daughters are not here either, so we're
Oh,
missing we're
yes.
missing them. So, tell us a little bit about what you guys are kind of interested in finding out today, taking away from this new family event. It's a good thing I can edit stuff here.
Chris is
What do you
interested
think?
in the food.
Food, good.
and
That's
cooling
good.
down. So
And do you think it will uncover any new clues that we haven't found out already?
Oh yeah, we're already getting all kinds
Christopher
of new
had a he had a clue.
information.
He had an ending, a possible ending.
she's talking about.
Oh dear. Oh, he had a theory that maybe Robert did it. Or it could be Joseph, one of the younger boys. That, right? Remember coming back to you? Because Lydia, the
But
second
we don't
wife,
get
was
any
very
clues
young.
today
No
yet.
clues today,
Okay.
but this was just one of the many theories. Maybe one of the Boxell boys did it.
Well, there's going to be over 100 people here today, I'm understanding. So maybe there's
Yes.
some folks that know some things
That's true.
we don't know they know, huh?
That's right.
Oh, great.
What
Good.
stories were handed down, we will learn today.
Wonderful. So, all right. Well, thanks very much for the introductions, and let's have a great time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Bob.
Bye bye. And tell us a little bit about who you are, how you're connected to the family, and then kind of what you want to get out of the event today, as it's the first annual event. So, and if anybody has comments, that'd be great. My name's Bob Cummings, by the way, and we're going to try and shoot this. And huh?
Any relation in Frederick, Wisconsin?
No, not that I know of. So I'm going to just put that up there. So I got the names, and that's it. Okay. So we're here with the Taylor and Boxell families, and they're here for the first annual reunion, and want to find out kind of where you're from and why you're here this afternoon for the first annual event. We'll start with Aunt Margie. Comments?
Just because we wanted a good get together, I guess.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people here from just different places, and I just wanted to get to know them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you guys from?
I'm from Columbia Heights.
Columbia Heights.
Yep.
And you guys?
From Blaine.
Blaine.
St. Paul.
St. Paul.
Blaine.
Blaine.
St. Paul.
St. Paul.
St. Paul.
St. Paul. Too. Anything special that you guys want to? Oh, and I missed you.
Oh, I'm from St. Paul.
St. Paul too. We got to get everybody.
I got my kids back here.
Anything special you want to kind of come away from this picnic finding out or learning, or I know there's some mystery involved in the families and
Yeah, that's intriguing. But just to get to know some relatives that I haven't been able to get to know yet.
sure.
Get some connections, maybe exchange some family information.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll put together the videos and the pictures, and everybody will know a little bit more about everybody else.
Okay.
Sounds good. Very good. Well, you guys have a great afternoon, and thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And her and I share a birthday. Okay.
Her daughter.
Her daughter. Okay.
I'm Pat. That's my daughter. And her guy.
My kids are okay. Let me put you right here. Okay. Let me put you right up here. Oh, there you go. And then put the two of them over here. Let's see. How old are you? Just separate from him a little bit. What do you think?
That looks good. I'm just shooting some B-roll. This is good.
Okay, well here's what's going to happen. I'm going to shoot a couple. I was 20 years in the military, so if I yell at you, you'll know why. Okay? I'm going to take a couple of shots. When I get done, he's going to start asking questions on a video. Okay? All right, just to let you know what's going on here.
Yeah.
Do you want your glasses on or off?
I'll take the sunglasses off.
Okay, I'm going to move over this way.
I'll take them off.
All right, can I have everybody?
1, 2, 3. Okay. Who's that? Hey, hi. Introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Kate Dando, and this is my husband Sam, and Tanner and Noella. And my maiden name is Amundsen, so I'm a great granddaughter of Robert Boxell.
Okay. And you guys live where?
From Minnetonka.
Minnetonka, so not too far away. And Tanner, how old are you? 3. 3. And Noella, how old are you?
6.
You're 6. Wow. And you guys excited to be here today for the family picnic? Lots of kids and lots of fun. And good food, maybe.
Yeah.
I saw a big boy of Sandy's.
You saw a big boy of on Sandy's. Yeah. Yep, that's one of Mommy's cousins. We're learning about cousins and family trees.
Yeah. So now this is the first, hopefully, annual event. We've got nearly 100 people that are showing up, so that's pretty exciting. Anything particular you want to find out, or mysteries you want to solve today? Try and solve today?
We're going to solve the whole mystery.
The whole mystery. All right. Well, we'll check back with you later and see what maybe you found out.
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Bye.
I'm going in there. Yeah, I'm just going to set this up and just let her run and get B-roll.
Come on, folks. I can't stand up here all day. Come on, everybody. Everybody. on, get more in the front. Have the kids sit down in the front.
Okay. Are you gonna do that? This is just Robert's, and then we're gonna do the whole thing.
Oh, really? Okay, I need some of you to come around back here in the back.
You promise.
Never, I'm standing on this thing. You go around the back.
You may not get up and sit down there. Okay.
Oh my God, I can get you guys in here, right? I'm just shaking, don't worry about it. Hey guys, my knees are shaking. Alright, look, right here. Yeah, there you go. Amanda, put your head over this side. There you go. Alright, everybody look up here. Stay there. The guy with his hands in the pocket, look up. Look at me. Alrighty, how many more do you want? Good, we're done.
Everybody, please stay here because we're going to get everybody else.
Can we do one more with the lowest? Oh, you're doing one more? Are you playing or are you doing another
I'm
picture?
just making sure it's stable there, you know.
Okay.
We do have a handicap sticker on it. No.
You're still going to do another one?
I guess they're getting everybody.
Okay, and then we would just Lois's descendants. We'd like a picture of just the Lois.
Whatever you guys want. I'm here to please. Where'd Sandy go? Okay, who am I missing? What do we got? Where's Sandy? I don't want you going out with the bride. I need you guys to come clean together so I can get more. Some of you can sit here in the front. Not in the line. Just the young folks. Just the young folks can sit.
Come on, this is everybody. Woo! This is everybody. All the kids in front. Everybody. They're all, come on, everybody.
Right there. Sit down right here. I don't want you going down. I want you coming behind here. Come on back here and get behind. I hope so. there on the end. I need you to come back about right there, please. You're real tall. Can I have your attention, please? I know you want to be with family, but I like to have the vertically challenged people in the front. The taller ones a little bit more to the back, please, so I can get everybody. That would be Bob.
You mean you're not gonna hang off the tree limb? You're not gonna hang off the tree limb?
I was born and they wouldn't let me. Right here. Right here. There you go.
Okay.
Smile. Hang on, got more? Another one. Okay, I got all of you. Somebody wanted somebody else. They wanted another group.
Lois is good.
And you don't even have a wide influence. Okay, one more picture. Okay, it's right. Okay,
That's
Lois.
an accomplishment. That's okay, we're okay.
Oh, they're still there. Oh, from the lowest. Oh, Sandy. Yes. Oh, man. We don't need to end this with anything yet.
All contractors were on that trip. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if she's going to be
You don't
able
have
to
to
stay
take
that
them
long.
out.
We're just going to do a quick one.
Come on, Ben. Come on, you can only break a leg.
In what direction? Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, good. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay. Yeah, because this is everybody take your
Well, he was trying to roll on his side the last picture.
Stop licking yourself.
You're the best.
Hey, so listen, you put me down, I'm down.
Joe Boxer family?
puppy doesn't stop and they step on it. At least they step on it, right? So maybe.
Oh yeah, see you, Mac. Take care.
Okay, this is your chance for that. And don't forget to fill out, don't forget to complete your crossword puzzle. The person with the most right answers will win a really coveted prize. And if there's a tie, we'll have to do a drawing. Okay?
So are you still part of the church?
For all of us. We also have a photographer. Please sign up for a photograph, and there'll be a really nice family time for you to have a photograph taken of your family and the group. And so Joanne Anders will take a huge group photo of all of us at the end of the day as well. Food, help yourself. Food is out all day long. We'll eat our main meal later in the afternoon when the second tour has taken place. There will be 2 tours of the Boxall House. There are agendas on the orange paper posted around, so if you want to know what's going on, you can do that. Personally, I want to welcome every single one of the descendants of WT, and I know we have someone here from the John Boxall family, Robert Boxall, Joseph Boxall, Rachel Boxall, and Nancy Boxall. That really, truly amazes me. I'm so excited. I just want to come and hug every single one of you. Oh my gosh, and if I haven't, I will by the end of the day. So I'm personally at this point welcoming, and I want to say, if anyone read the invitation, we mentioned we would take a collection, a donation, for restoration of the headstones at the cemetery for Rachel, Lydia, and WT. However, the cost is exorbitant. $1,200 just to do the inscription on Rachel's headstone. And I think we are going to try to come up with an alternative to that. So Glenn Schmidt and his wife Julie went to the cemetery. They have estimates, but they have gone and personally cleaned and restored WT's and Rachel's and Lydia's, the main headstone, is that correct?
Yep.
And the pictures that I have seen, it's a remarkable difference. Now, what I think Glenn and Julie are proposing is, in lieu of taking donations and paying this much money to have Rachel's restored, is to go, and it has lasted this long, maybe there is some kind of something to put on it just to preserve it, to keep it at least in the condition that it is now. So our little donation box sitting somewhere was originally intended to pay for that. If anyone does want to or have a desire to contribute $1 or $2 or whatever just to help defray the costs of the reunion, that is fine. It's not necessary, but if anyone is interested in doing that. We also have someone here to scan documents, and in that trailer sitting to the right of me out in the parking lot, if there's any photographs or any newspaper articles that you see, and this is a display area up here, then please take them to Amanda, is out there right now. Okay, there's Amanda, you can see her. And so throughout the day, if you want something scanned that you want to save or want to have, then please take it to her. She will compile, I believe, all of the documents, all the photos, anything that is scanned today, and will mail out a copy of a disc with all that information on it. If you sign up at the sign-up table there's sheets for signing for that, sheets for signing up for all the photographs taken today. There is a fee for that. And sign up for the home tours. There will be two, one at 1:15 approximately. It might be running late because we got started a little later, and another approximately 4 o'clock. I think that I also, I may have missed somebody in doing some welcomes here. So Don Wegmiller, who happens to be the husband of my dear cousin Janet, I think, Don, would you like to come and maybe you have a few words to say?
All right.
As he's walking.
All the work that she and her lieutenants did. Great job. Great job. Right, stand right here because we're going to pick on you a lot. No, we're not. Now, Sandy asked if I would say a few words on behalf of the outlaws, the husbands and spouses and wives and daughters and so on of not the Boxell family, but other families. And a lot of them are here under duress. Bob Cummings, Mac McQuoid. Did somebody wake up Mac? Oh yeah, he's awake. It's really hard to tell on him. Sam Dando, poor Sam is here. There he is, right? So all of us got into this Boxell family through a variety of ways, but I got in by marrying Janet, who was the daughter of Lois Listerud. And she was one of the, as she often told me, the fabulous 4 sisters, Edith and Helen and Inez and Lois, all descendants of Robert Boxell. And I can recall when we first met, and then later when I asked Janet to marry me, and we talked about that, and I said, well, I'm a little nervous about this, and I want to tell you that, and from my side of the family, when the male gets married, he gets, Lois, he gets a dowry. That's how it works in our family. So I was thinking maybe as a dowry, you would give us a new refrigerator. And she explained to me, in the Boxell family, they didn't give nothing to nobody. So all these years, I've been waiting for this refrigerator. Now Lois has passed, so I'm not going to get that. But later, Mac and I discovered that we had been brought into a family filled with axe murderers. And I would think that the collection we ought to take is for all of us who were brought into the family and really need refrigerators.
Yeah!
I would think that's what the donation, so where's that box?
I think we'll vote on that.
Yeah, right, yeah. And who doesn't get a vote? I know who that is. No, but again, it's a great reunion. Sandy and the team have done a great job. My daughter Kathy has worked on this and is very excited about all of the genealogy that's been discovered. So I hope we all have a great time, and thank you again, Sandy.
Oh, you are so welcome. You're so welcome. Okay. And I dropped it, so I dropped the agenda. Just a moment. All right.
Sandy, would you slide back over there, and then I'm getting a better shot.
Oh, I
Light-wise.
certainly will.
Thank you.
All right. As for our family introductions, and I believe now I'm going to turn this over to Lorna Coleman, my niece, who is going to talk about the children's games that she has, and then I'll talk about a couple of the adult games when she's done.
Okay, we've got a couple games planned. We'll start them at, what time is it now?
1 o'clock.
Okay, about 1:15 we'll start. So we'll meet the kids down by the playground or something. So we've got 3-legged races and we've got gunny sack races we're gonna do. And it's not just for the kids, so if any of the adults wanna come and have some fun, we'll do that too. And then I also wanted to mention the family tree thing that's taped onto the side of the trailer. And there's markers on the box down below, so please fill in any of your family tree lineage stuff on there the best you can. We've got under Edith's, we kind of got a sample of kind of how we did it. So however you want to get the information on there, do.
Yes, that's really important because once everyone writes their information there, I can take that back to Oregon, and in my spare time, I will compile that, and if I have all of your emails, I will email it out to all of you as well.
And add dates if possible. I didn't get the dates on.
Oh, dates. Okay, we could add dates, or, so birth dates, or if you knew any dates of deaths or anything. But at least so we could have all the siblings under, all the 14, and how just do your own family tree, and they're all out there. You could fill in the blank spots. I have a couple of games myself today. I want to have people be introduced by family, by their descendant. So when you look around your family, we have 5 siblings represented. We all know the picture, maybe you don't. The picture on the far left here is Rachel Boxall and her husband, William Thomas Boxall. And I'm going to have a look-alike contest. I want you to nominate someone in your family that you think looks the most like Rachel and the one that looks the most like WT. Then, later in the afternoon, send that person up here and we're all going to applaud and see who the winner would be. What one relative looks the most like WT. Doesn't even have to be a direct Don, you could be nominated for Rachel.
I'm nominating Max for Rachel. Looks a lot like Rachel.
So anyway, there is a little prize for the person who looks the most like. I also, in listening to all of our family history today, there will be all kinds of stories told, and just keep your ears open because I have a trivia crossword puzzle you can do at the end of the day. And I have a prize for the person who gets the most answers right on the trivia puzzle, and so you may hear what the answers are throughout the day today. Right now, I would like to have everyone from my family, meaning the descendants of Robert Boxall, all stand. Everybody from Robert's family, and including Mary Kay in the wheelchair back there. So we have quite a large group. Okay, now I would like everyone from Joseph Boxall's family to please stand. All descendants from Joseph Boxall. All right, good turnout. Thank you. All right, what about Nancy Boxall? Everyone here that is a descendant of Nancy Boxall. Wow, wonderful, wonderful. All right, what about Rachel Boxall? And John Boxall. John Boxell family. Look at this. And we also have one person here related to Lydia Oliver Boxell. More? Do we have any more that came? Would you stand up so we can see who you are? Mike Holder. Thank you. Mike came all the way from Indiana to join this crazy group. To Rachel, and you're related to both wives. Rachel and Lydia Oliver is shown in the other photo in the newspaper article. And unfortunately, Lydia was his wife that was murdered. And there will be stories later in the day about family history. Right now, I think I will turn this over to Glenn Schmidt, and he will get people ready for the first tour of the Gruenhagen home, the original W.T. Boxell home.
The Gruenhagens are the current owners of the property right now. Dave Gruenhagen's grandfather bought the property after it was all split up through the family. If you look back through some of the historical data, you can actually see how big the property was, and that's been all chopped up and parted out in different farms at the time. I think we all owe a big thanks to the Gruenhagens, because one thing we considered is, do we ask them to open up the house? This house has been vacant for a couple of years, so if you go in there and you see things that are behind some black plastic and in other rooms, keep in mind this house is used for storage for the last couple of years. No one's lived in it. They've each built separate houses outside of it. So just understand that that's not the way they live. They've been using it for storage. But what they've done since we've been here about 6 months ago, when we went through it, they've actually cleaned out big areas. They actually have some maps on the wall that comes from the historical data as to what was the footprint of the house, what rooms were laid out how, where Lydia was found. It'll say she was behind one of the stoves. And they've actually opened up some of the wall cavities, so you can actually see where the old furnace was and where the chimney was, so you can identify where that map relates to the house. And they've actually, in the last couple days, and actually I think since Wednesday, they actually pulled up some of the floorboards so that you guys can actually see where some of the stains are, and it coincides with the actual investigative work and sketches. So a big thanks. We didn't even expect it. We went out there this morning, and it's like, really, you guys went through all this for us. They're still out there working. Actually, when we were out there, I was helping them move furniture and refrigerators and stuff. Keep in mind when you go out there, you know, obviously there's a couple steps up into the house. So if you're in a wheelchair or handicapped, keep in mind there's probably 2 or 3 steps to get up into the house. But they weren't going to open up the main floor for us. Last time we talked to them today, they said, no, we cleared it out. So we can get to the main floor of the house, so you can see where the bedroom was, where the parlor was, where the front porch was. We didn't know that until we went out there about a half an hour ago. So I don't know the exact amount of land, but he was one of the biggest farmers out in this county. And if you go back and look at the historical data, there's back in about the 1900s, it'll lay out the original Boxell land. So the Gruenhagens, there's a couple houses that they built, one across the street, one on that property, and they still live there. So I guess out of respect, we're asking that when you come out there, you park just down from the house. They're going to actually bring you up to the front of the house. And then once we're done in the inside on the main level, we'll walk around the house, and there's a ramp that basically walks to the tuck under garage, and we can get into the basement of the house. So you can look up at the floorboards, because some of the staining is on the floorboards in the basement, and other stuff is up on the main floor where you can actually see it. So, but I guess out of respect for them, just keep in mind they opened it up because of this reunion. If you need directions, when you come out this exit here, you go down to Main Street again. And if you go out of town, roughly about a mile out of town, we put up a sign out there that says Boxell House. You take a right, you'll go over the railroad trestle, and there'll be another sign. It's the first farm on the right-hand side. There's another sign down there. And then when we later have the service, if you're on Main Street and you take a left and go to 6th, I think it's County Road 6, there will be a sign that directs you out of town. And right next to the cemetery, there's another sign that directs you into the cemetery. When you pull into the cemetery, main gate, you only have to go up about 50 feet, and their tombstones are on the right-hand side there. So if you're not familiar, I'm sure someone right there can find them, but they're right on the right-hand side, about 50 feet in. Anyway, there's maps up on the sign-up desk up here that'll direct you out to the farm. And if you haven't signed up for a tour, there's a lot of people on the first tour. So when we get into the main level, we'll probably only send so many people in at a time to take your pictures and everything else. Come out in the front yard, wait, and then we'll go around down below. But if anybody hasn't signed up for a tour, don't sign up for the first tour anymore because there's plenty of people. Sign up for the 4 o'clock tour, and we'd appreciate that.
Glenn, it's my understanding that some of or a couple of the Gruenhagen family will join us at our reunion this afternoon. When they do, we purchased this apple tree to represent the 14 limbs of our family descendants, but when they come, we would like to present them with this apple tree that they could plant on that property in memory of all of us. So I just wanted to make sure that we know someone will be here. And so yes, some of them will be here. Okay, and there will also be a tour then about 4 o'clock this afternoon. During the time while those are gone on the tour, we're going to do some games. We're going to do some sharing of stories and timelines and information, but that will continue all afternoon. And it will also be videotaped, I believe, and we will also have information to share with documents as well. So anybody ready for that tour? Follow Glenn.
I guess anybody that sees one of the Gruenhagens, they have their uncle, which remembers how the house was purchased. When they purchased, nothing was cleaned up. And so their grandfather actually went through and sort of had to redo the whole house. So there's quite a few memories they have, different things that they remember living in the house. And actually in the last couple of weeks since they knew we were having a reunion, they really got into actually sort of like what we're doing is pulling apart the house, figuring out what they really had. Not that it was that important to them, but the history behind it and how much it means to us to actually be able to do that. So if you see them and they got a name tag on, thank them for me.
I understand they are going to be sharing it down.
Yeah. Well, they may. They don't know yet.
Maybe they'll share stories. Their stories with us as well.
Mike for a minute, just to make sure that we give some extra appreciation and thanks to Sandy and to Julie and Glenn for helping pull together this event, which is absolutely amazing to pull together so many families and all this family history. I know how much it would mean to my grandma Edie, who is Robert Boxall's son. So thank you so much for all that you've done to prepare the park and to prepare the family history and pull everyone together. So Julie and Glenn, we have a plan for you. And Sandy, we have flowers for you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, you never cease to amaze me. Anyway, thank you. It's an honor and I feel very humbled by that. Thank you. All right, I think at this moment then people who want to take off for the tour will take off for the tour, correct? And Lorna will start some of the children's games. And there will now be we'll take maybe just a couple minute break and get back together in like 15 minutes and we will start talking about the timeline history of the Boxalls and then move into stories and sharing time. So if you want to take a few minute break, get something to eat, something to drink, we'll come back up here in a few minutes. Marcotte was going to start talking and go on from there on the rest of the timeline talking about WT. But the thing is, on this wagon train that I found very, very interesting, was that all of these very, very large group of citizens from Middleville, Howard Lake, Victor, the townships around here, came, and they were friends in Indiana, and they were all neighbors and friends here and came on the wagon trains. The Taylors, the Shears, Johnsons, Anders, Olivers, and W.T.'s second wife was one of the Oliver girls. So thinking about that wagon train and everything they went through on that travel was the bonding those families must have acquired such strong feelings for each other. And that's why they could form a great community and be support to each other here. And again, perhaps not surprising why Lydia chose one of the Oliver daughters as his wife when he lost Rachel when she was like 56 years old of a heart attack. And so Chris knows and will share information to follow up with that. Here you go, Chris.
Well, I have never used a microphone, so if you can hear me in the back, I would just as soon not.
All right.
Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So I'm kind of taking over from when they came to Minnesota, and actually, you know, even as I listened to Sandy, there was things I heard that I thought, no, I don't know if that's quite right, and I'm sure you're all thinking about that as you're hearing what everybody has to say today, because we've all got little pieces and bits of information, and the census has, you know, we're guessing on some of the dates of birth and all that. So anyway, what I actually show is that James was the first child born in Minnesota. And that would have been in 1866, all right? So that's kind of what I've got, and they bought the house, which some of you already saw today, from a family that was already in the area. Their name was the father's name was Francis Shanley, and then a couple more kids were born, Nancy and Joe, and then the 1870 census shows that W.T. had 7 children, so by then there was the 7 kids. And then after that, in the next, between then and 1880, then came along Rachel and William, Margaret, Sarah, and Robert. So by the 1880 census, he's got they've got 12 children, so they've had 12 children within 20 years, no twins. But here, by 1881, we've already got kids starting to get married. So in 1881, the first marriage is one of those famous Boxall Taylor ones, and it's Catherine and George. And then Rachel has the last 2 babies, and they have their first grandchild, who is Rosetta Rosie Taylor. 1890, for those of you who've done genealogy, know that there is little to no census records available. But by this time, all of the Boxall Taylor marriages have taken place, as well as 4 others. So half the kids are married by now, and between them there's 10 grandchildren. James and Maggie have moved out of the area. They've moved to Ohio. They're the first in the clan to move away. By 1895, Christmas, was when this picture was taken. And it's kind of fun because I found a little blurb of a newspaper article, and this is part of the article, but in the paper in January of '96, and it said how James and his wife had come home for Christmas, and all the Boxalls, family and friends were together for Christmas, and there was a total of 54 people at their Christmas gathering. The picture itself, although everybody on this side ends up getting cut off, and I don't know how far they went this way, because there's 50 people in the picture, but if there was 54 that actually were photographed, then we're missing a few more on that one side. Okay, so, and it said in the paper about them having this family picture taken. And I read that. I was at Wright County Historical Society doing research, and then the next day I went to visit a new cousin that I had not met before. So she's new to me, Margie, who's sitting back in the middle. And we were turning pages in her books, and here, lo and behold, is that picture. This picture that I just read about in the paper. I mean, the shivers that went through my body were just one of those wow kind of things. So that was really fun. So anyway, this was taken just 6 months before Rachel died. Okay, so Rachel died after Christmas. She died in June. And then Sarah she got married within a month. I'm assuming the marriage was already planned, but it's hard to say. And then Fanny, the last daughter, she got married about 6 months later. All right, so that's all in 96. Then is 97. All right, so in 97, after a relatively short courtship, Lydia was married to William T. And actually, I'm going to read you. It's kind of interesting if you haven't heard the what was in the newspaper. And these, the newspaper's pretty opinionated on what they wrote. But this is what they said. This was a couple days after the wedding. Last Friday, Mr. Thomas Boxall of Victor, and the article has mistakes in it, so we'll just go with it, and Miss Oliver of Middleville were married at Buffalo. Judge Woolley pronounced the solemn vows which united the couple in the holy bonds of matrimony. The bride has seen but 17 Minnesota winters, but the groom has reached the mature age of 70 and has raised a large family during his long residence in Wright County, for he was one of the very old settlers. Miss Oliver acquires the title of grandmother by marriage, and it is said that the title to 80 acres of arable land as well. It is to be regretted that Mr. Boxall is denied the full enjoyment of the honeymoon period, as he was quite ill and was placed under his doctor's care on Sunday. Some of the old shoes kept in this office for such occasions are hereby figuratively hurled after the happy couple, with many wishes for continued joy as a result of this blending of December and June. So, not the kind of announcement you see in the paper nowadays. All right. Okay, so they were married again on February 12th. On May 15th, which is a date most of you are probably familiar with, they were murdered in their home between 11 o'clock and midnight. And there's a short obituary kind of thing that I'm going to read to you, because again, they're interesting. All right, W.T. was 65 years old. He was born in the state of Ohio, but afterwards moved to Indiana, where he married Miss Rachel Nelson, the sister of Gulliford Nelson of Middleville. 14 children survived, with one exception, live in these parts. And then it lists the kids, which we all know who they are. About the year 1865, he came to the state and took a homestead. His wife died the 28th of last June, and 3 months later, which is an error, he was married to Miss Lydia. And the new bride and the 2 boys kept house at the homestead until the crime of Saturday night ended their earthly existence. Mr. Boxall is believed to have been worth at the time of his death $15,000, the result of lifelong industry and frugal management. Funeral services were held in the grove south of the house on Monday at 2 p.m. Reverend A. Murray of the Methodist Church, of which Mr. Boxall was a member, was in charge. Prayer was offered by Reverend D. Murdoch, and a brief address given by Reverend Murray and S.J. McCormick, both of whom made some impressive remarks at the cemetery. The attendance was very large. There was 125 teams in the procession. And then the last paragraph is, the governor of the state has offered a reward of $250 for the apprehension and conviction of the murderer. We are pleased to learn that the county board is likely to supplant this amount with a liberal amount. Neither expense nor trouble should be spared in detecting and punishing for the crime. All right, so then just a few highlights about the investigation and the trial. As early as June, Joe was publicly suspected. But in August, a vagrant, well, not a vagrant, a person who traveled from farm to farm helping out with chores and also happened to be working on the railroad, was arrested. His name was Wallace Gardner. When they arrested him, he was working in North Dakota, but they brought him back because they were sure that he was the person who did it. But he was able to prove that he was not, and was let go after about a week to 10 days in jail. So then there was, at that time, grand jury met twice a year in December and June. So the grand jury met that December and again in June. And it wasn't until December of '98 that they felt they had enough evidence to arrest Joe. So in January of '99, Joe was arrested. And then he sat in jail pending the next trial date, which was the grand jury indictment and that was again in June. So then in June, Joe was indicted, and then they also indicted his brother John and his brother-in-law George Taylor. And then they were in jail until the trial. So the trial was begun on June 26th, and with the jury selection, which took a couple days. They went through the first 72 potential jurors, and these are all men, by the way, of course, in that day and time, it was just men, and exhausted it. There was nobody that was suitable to be on the jury. So then the sheriff had to round up another 80 plus people to come in, men to come in, and finally they were able to get enough jurors. So they had court 6 days a week in those times. They had court on Saturdays, but the court period ended up, the 4th of July was in there, so they did not have court on the 4th of July. But the trial itself then lasted for 19 days, which was the longest trial in the state of Minnesota at that time. It was also the most expensive, which is partly because of the length of time. And it concluded on July 18th, about 9 o'clock at night, with a verdict of not guilty. So then after Joe was acquitted, the charges against his brother and his brother-in-law were dropped, and so they were released as well. So that kind of brings us up to where I'm going with it. So,
all right. Then I have a question, Julie. Would you like this time to introduce the Gruenhagen family that has been so kind to give us our tours, and we can.
Can we have the Gruenhagen family stand so we all can see who you guys are? This day just could not have been such an incredible day without this family, and we want to thank you guys so much for everything you guys have done for this family. My husband and I kind of bombarded them 2 years ago and just knocked on their door and said, "We're a Boxall. Can we look at the house?" And David, the family member that lives at the site, took 3 hours of his time unannounced, and we were just so overwhelmed at their generosity. And then last summer, when Sandy came into town, we felt like we bugged them again, called them up and said, "Can we come look at the house again?" And then again this summer. But we just cannot thank you enough for everything you guys have done. After the Boxall murders in 1897, the house sat vacant until the Gruenhagens bought that property in 1919. And when they bought that house, the family had just walked away from it. Nothing had been cleaned up. There were axe marks still in the wall. The blood stains were still in the, nothing was cleaned up. And for those of you who have gone on the tour, I heard it was incredible. For those of you who have not, we will have one more. We just, I guess, I think that's, is there anything that you guys would like to add?
Well, I just want to say this is my uncle, Elton. He lives on the property that his dad bought. He bought the property. Elton now farms down here, probably what, a half mile, maybe?
Yeah, down
yeah, right on the lake here. So the farm, you know, my dad stayed on the home place, and Elton had the other place. And so Terry and Glenn and Twyla and me and Kevin and David and Randy, we were the kids on the farm at that time. So
at the home place.
At the home place.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So how many acres were on the home place?
Earlier?
Yes, the original home place at Grandpa.
60 some, I think, or something like that.
For those of you who couldn't hear, the question was how many acres were at the home place?
Towards the boxes, and then there's the 30 acres just to the north.
And the answer is 60.
We kept increasing, you know, and then across the bridge, 53 acres there was purchased.
And he said that the barn was standing when Grandpa bought it, right? The red barn with the with the wooden.
The old barn, right.
With the wooden silos.
No, I don't remember that. No, it was built in '36, the new barn.
The new barn that's there now.
Yeah. The new barn.
And the Gruenhagens have provided, and which we are in the process of scanning, they have provided a picture of the Boxell barn and silos that were on the site when the property was purchased. So WT and Rachel would have, the barn and silos would have been on their site. They also have photos of the house, the outside of the house. As an expression of our appreciation, the Boxell family has purchased for the Gruenhagen family an apple tree. And the apple tree represents all the branches of the Boxell family and our appreciation. And we have a card for you. And we would love it if you would plant it on the property somewhere. And thank you so much.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Did any of the Gruenhagens care to
family tree, that type of thing. It was kind of interesting today because I've met some people that I've been corresponding with or emailing with or trading messages with for someplace back along 1996 and on. Trading a lot of messages and everything else. When I started doing the research that I've done, it was pretty much on message boards that were on RootsWeb. I haven't used it for so long. And thanks, I'm gonna fall on my face. I probably will, literally. We started a lot of that. I know Gene Linton is here. We corresponded a lot, and Chris and Jody and a few others along the line, all the way along. We all trade information back and forth. One of the things that got me in touch with a lot of the people here that I've met today and have known for a long time has been through Ancestry. Ancestry's, and I'm not a salesman. There's a lot of different programs. I know some people use Legacy. Some people use some different other programs online. Ancestry, I found, was one of the best that I've been able to work with. I kind of goofed it up today because I crashed my computer this morning and thought I lost everything, and here I had this slideshow, and then I show up here and I forgot my power cord for it, you know. I have lost all my information and all my pictures twice in the past and had to reconstitute a lot of it. And Ancestry was a big help because I had it online. I pay for a subscription, but you don't have to. You can research on there. You can find MyTree and a lot of the others on there for free and be able to research and look at the information. And please, if anybody wants an invite onto my site, doesn't cost you anything, and I'll be more than glad to give it to you. All you have to do is give me an email address. One of the things that I've done over the years, I got so much help starting out, trying to figure out where things went and where they came from. I mean, I knew my dad's name, I knew my grandma's name, I knew they came from Howard Lake. That was it. We didn't talk a lot of family history. My wife got me started in it because her mother was the youngest of 14 kids. The oldest brothers were old enough to be grandparents of the youngest. Her mother moved to California from Arkansas and totally away from the whole family. So when I started researching her family, the first thing I found out was that her father had been married to another woman before he married her mother. How's that for starting out research? We found a lot of relatives along the way. Some we keep in close touch with, some we just seen by email. We found out a lot of information. You think this is the only family that has black horse? Boy, Joe's family's got a couple, my wife. Every family does. Every family's got things. And as descendants, we find out a lot of stuff and try to piece it together if you're interested in it. That's what, you know, if we don't carry the stories on, nobody's going to. If we don't carry the family history on. That's one of the reasons why I've pushed so much for people to share the family tree. My family tree is on there. I open it up as public. There's nothing in there that people can't learn by any number of ways through our government and everything else. So, you know, there's nothing secret on there. Birth dates, names, everything else, you know. And I've gotten so much help over the years that I've opened mine up as public for, you know, anybody else to utilize. I've gone through and researched, I kind of say my family tree, the roots and the branches, because I've gone off very, very, whoa, we got a dog fight. Are they opposite families or what? Where was I? One of the things I've found is that with the extended tree and all the, I'll get off on somebody else's line and find all kinds of cross information and how it backs up some of the other information I've got on my direct family. Our relationship with the Boxell family, my great-great-grandmother was Nancy, and she married one of the Taylor brothers. The Taylors, the three brothers that were sons of Mills Taylor, which would be my great-great-grandfather, I guess. Two of them moved back to the Frederick, Wisconsin area. One stayed here in the Minnesota area. Some of those descendants moved into Buffalo, Morrison County, up along the area. Most of them in Wisconsin stayed right around the Frederick area. When I researched all this and started tracking down all the names and birth dates and everything else, I found it real hard to support and source a lot of the information. And a lot of it I've gotten from other family trees of other people that have shared with me. I now have a family tree on the Taylor side that's amounts to about 5,800 names. They're not all directly related. A lot of them are married somehow into the family someplace along the line. But it's interesting how you can tie a lot of that in. Anybody that's interested in doing any little bit of research, please come on over. If you want some verification on information, I think probably online I've got the majority of the information on there. A lot of it's shared from many different sources, and we've got multiple other wonderful trees out there. but I'm more than glad to share with you. I have also used, since I lost my whole family tree the last time through ANSYS, or through my computer crashing, I put together and purchased the Family Tree Maker. And that actually synchronizes, when it works, between the computer and the online record. So everything's kind of kept in sequence. Basically, that's about all I want to tell you. Oh, no, there is one more thing. Find a grave. I know that sounds gross, but it's a good resource for information, and I found it wonderful to be able to visit some of my relatives' headstones or gravesite by utilizing Find a Grave. And I've started where I've started setting up memorials and or taken over maintenance so that I can update and tie in different relatives with their parents, and hopefully getting pictures of the grave sites. One of the things you'll see up here on my computer, the slideshow, is some different stones and headstones from different people throughout the Boxall and the Taylor families and a lot of the other offshoots. It does a lot of good. I've gotten a number of emails from people in far off states. Just recently received one from in the California area that said, "Thank you very much for posting a picture of my great-grandmother's headstone. I'd never seen it. I'd never been able to visit the grave." I found the same thing. As close as I am to some of these up here, I've never visited. And that's another site I would like to highly recommend to anybody. Sandy, you had something else you were going to ask me.
Oh, I was just going to ask you about is there anyone in your family that actually knew Nancy, that was alive when Nancy was alive?
That knew Nancy?
Knew Nancy personally.
Margie, probably. Margie?
Yeah.
Did you know Nancy? Did you meet Nancy?
I didn't meet Nancy, but I met Grandpa.
You met Grandpa, but you hadn't met. She had passed away.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering, because I know that
Margie and I are distant cousins.
You're distant cousins?
She's the youngest of the two.
Okay. Okay, but I was just thinking, if there was anybody here that actually knew their grandmother or grandfather, if they were from that generation where the 14,
Yeah, great-grand.
Yeah, and my grandpa Boxall died 2 months before I was born, so I never met him, but I heard great stories about him. But it'd be interesting to just hear just a little bit about if there's anyone, and I think that we have one, Robert does have one granddaughter here today that knew him, and my brother knew him, but the oldest granddaughter, Shirley Grant, the daughter of Robert Boxall's oldest daughter, Ines Boxall Grant. Is it, you're the oldest? Oh, but you also knew him. So Shirley was willing to get up and tell a couple of those stories that she remembers about Robert. And Janet remembers.
Come on up here and I'll hand the mic over to you.
Wrote biographies about several of his brothers, and in there he did say that his brother John raised the finest Clyde's horses in the county. So we know that they had some great horses. And George Taylor, the brother-in-law, and George Boxall, Robert Boxall, and John Boxall would go on many, many hunting and fishing trips. And they had a little cabin up north, and they talked about Little Woman Lake and many different lakes in these biographies. And there are some very cute stories that George wrote in these little biographies. I will lay them out here on the back table if anybody would like to read those or make a copy of them. 7. Okay?
Didn't get tired of me before you wore out. A couple of questions. If anybody happens to know, when I was putting together some of the information on the whole Boxall family, there's 2 blank spots I ran into. One of them was Joseph and where he might be buried, and the names and dates of wives. So if maybe somebody from the family might be able to fill me in on some of that. The other is with Frances, or Fanny. Fanny was married to Charles Anders, and they were divorced. And she moved to Montana, left the children and moved to Montana, and was working on a stock ranch she was a dressmaker for a while, and then on a horse ranch or a stock ranch. And I have no reference after that of where she might be buried, if she was moved back here or anything. So if anybody knows anything on those are the only 2 that I can't fill in on the family. Margie has something.
That's wonderful. Okay.
We're Fanny? Okay.
Are you ready for the master tour?
Come talk.
Okay. All right. I know one other person.
Okay, I was the oldest of the girl grandchildren, and then Janet and Sandy, and we had 4 girls that Grandpa, we called him Papa, had, and he was a very kind person. I went trapping with him. He liked to trap like mink, and he was, I'd stay overnight. He did some kind of house sitting for resorts in the winter time. And I can remember him having nice gardens, and they lived in an old log house, and it did burn, and that was when I was very young. So, but as I remember him, he was a wonderful man, so we miss him. So. Thank you.
You knew John? Or no, which? Okay, which?
No, I did not.
Please introduce yourself and let us know.
I'm Jane Garden. I'm the granddaughter of John Boxall. And I didn't know him because he died when I was about a year old. I knew my grandmother, Nettie, and John and Nettie on the right in that picture. But the one I knew best was George Boxall. He was the youngest, and he married my father's sister. You know, that's the way it was in Howard Lake. He owned the combination furniture store and mortuary in downtown Howard Lake. We just went by the building a little while ago. My mother, his niece, assisted him in the mortuary and had some good stories to tell about that. And I knew his wife, Laura. She's my aunt on the other side. And these were the people that I knew best from that generation.
Very, very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, I have one other funny thing to say. It was a surprise to me to find out there were so many Boxalls. I thought there were only 2, John and George. And I'm not sure when I found this out, but it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. But it was never mentioned. I thought, where were the other 12 all that time? Does anyone know? I think they all disappeared. Yeah, back in Howard Lake, there were only 2.
Thank you very much. Did anyone know there is a lake named Boxall Lake? Boxall Lake was named after George Boxall. George and his brother Robert both did a homestead on this lake, and at that time it was just had Indians living around the lake. And George said to Robert, "Why don't you and I go and start a claim on that lake?" Well, then they were the first settlers to do that, and the lake was named after Boxall's. So there is a Boxall Lake, and I would tell you where it was, but at this moment I don't know. I think, do you know where it is, Mac or Janet?
It's in Cass County.
It's in up at Longville. Okay, it's in Longville, Minnesota. Okay, I know there is descendants here from Joseph Boxall's family, and so graciously Jeff Boxall has volunteered to read something that Joseph wrote when he went out, when he was found innocent. The jury said, no, they didn't do it. And so he went out on a lecture and he wrote a speech that he shared, and he was collecting donations, I'm sure, to help defray the costs of the attorneys and everything. And Jeff has volunteered to read that speech, and I think it was quite interesting. Are you ready, Jeff? Or? Sure. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Jeff Boxall. Have an actual descendant read this. It's great, thank you. Well, sure, that'd be great. Sure, then they at least know.
This is a article from the Buffalo newspaper, July 19th, 1899, and it's titled, "Boxall Goes Free." Acquitted last night after 4 hours deliberation, trial of John Boxall and George Taylor to be taken up soon. Not guilty was the verdict received at 9:30 last night in the case of Joseph Boxall, charged with murder. Joseph Boxall has been on trial for the last 17 days, charged with the murder of his father and his young stepmother at Howard Lake in 1897. The jury was out just 4 hours. The first ballot stood 9-3 for acquittal. The news that the jury had come to an agreement spread like wildfire, and even at the late hour, the courtroom was overfilled with people. When the verdict was read, they could not restrain themselves, and there was prolonged applause and excitement. Everyone rushed forward to congratulate Boxall. After shaking hands with his attorneys and the jury, he was the recipient of many congratulations from his friends. John Boxall and George Taylor will be released on $5,000 bonds, which is expected they will be able to furnish in a few days. Court took a recess until August 14th, at which time it is the purpose of the state to take up the prosecutions against them. There is a movement underway to raise a purse of several $100s for the liquidation of court expenses incurred by Joseph Boxall. And so that was July 19th, 1899. And this was an article from the Annandale Advocate on 10/26/1899, and it reads, "For a man who had never made an appearance before an audience before, Joseph Boxall did well on last Saturday evening. For a man who, despite his complete acquittal, is peered at as a curiosity, is yet in defiance of law and decency denounced as a murderer by his enemies, it was indeed remarkable. Those who expected a tirade of abuse were disappointed. His story was a plain tale of the disgrace and ignominy which he felt was thrust upon him in the name of law and justice, and to the disgrace of the country. His address was naturally disconnected and his speech rough and uncouth, mixed with Southern brogue. It reads, I am not an experienced speaker, but a stranger in disgrace. My lecture is to try to draw to light before you some of the dark points in my trial by law. I have been disgraced and persecuted by so-called detectives, not working to find who committed the crime, but to get the reward. There was political reasons for my arrest too. Alex McVitie, whose character is known all over Wright County, made his brags that he would get the nomination for sheriff by convicting me. But praise God, he couldn't do it. None can say that I was ever guilty of crime or that I ever quarreled with my father and stepmother. I have been a Christian since I was 14 years old and have tried to lead a Christian life. I was a member of the Methodist Church under Elder Murray, and he can't say I done any wrong, but he turned against me as soon as I was arrested and worked for the reward. He wanted to educate his children with. He said it, and I can prove it by Mr. and Mrs. Towsley of Howard Lake, and he still visits my wife and coaxes her to keep away from me. I was always a working and saving man. I worked for Father till I was 21, and he gave me 40 acres of land. They would not let my brother testify at the trial, for he and Brother Robert would have told the truth and knocked their bloody coat story to pieces. They jumped him from Father's house to the boat landing, though he knew I changed my clothes and that I had the nosebleed, so Robert finished milking for me. No, every witness for me was threatened and hindered by McVitie, E.G., and Mark Woolley, but they could not get them to lie. They did get one perjurer, John Robinson, my wife's cousin, but here are 2 letters written to me while I was in jail, and these letters were read. He nearly fainted when the letters were read. Well, I want to tell how I was arrested and why. A detective, Howard, of Minneapolis, was coming up to take the case, and McVitie and E.G. thought they must fasten the crime on me or give up that reward and nomination for sheriff, so I was arrested. And how did they do it? There was 5 of them, 2 Woolies, Alex McVitie, Jim E.G., and Constable Epler. They came in at 11 o'clock at night like a lot of ruffians who were going to lynch me. They taunted and jeered me before my wife and children and said, "We've got you now, you've got to hang. Kiss your children goodbye, Joe, you won't never see them again." I was taken to Mark Woolley's office and stood abuse all night. They drank lots of whiskey and took turns at me. They say they done it to make me confess. Then I was taken to Mr. Epler's house, and Elder Murray came to make me confess. He said he thought I knew who did it, made all sorts of promises if I would tell. Then he asked for a Bible and said, "Joe, I'm going to shut my eyes and open the Bible, and the first chapter I put my finger on I will read. Now if God in that chapter condemns you, will you confess?" I said, "No. Let me take the Bible and see if you are guilty." He said, "No, I'm not under arrest." Then he said, "Joe, I'm going to give you one more test. Now, are you willing that I should pray God to strike you dead if you are lying to me?" I said, "Yes." And he prayed, but when he looked up, I was sitting in the chair just as alive as ever. There was one more dirty trick I want to tell you about. Murray and the detectives kept my wife from visiting me, but at last she came. I was put into a new cell, and she sat at the door and soon began to ask if John Boxell and George Taylor had not committed the murder. I then surmised that they had got her to do what they had got her to do and asked her if there was not a man in the next cell. She looked in my face and told a deliberate lie. There was a stenographer in that cell writing every word that passed, and she knew it. That is what they got my wife to do, and I was helpless in jail. Now, they all lay it to the minister. Well, put a detective, butcher, lawyer, and minister in a box together, and they always down the minister. Mr. Lamson of Buffalo did not do fair by me in the trial nor since. He wanted to hang me. He could not say too much against me. All the time the state was giving evidence, he printed it. When my time came, he only printed the cross-examination. The columns of the Minneapolis Journal will show it. My old pastor turned against me, but there were some who done a minister's duty. Among them I wish to mention Father Plant of Buffalo, though I didn't belong to his kind of church, done all he could to make me comfortable. I had many friends at both Minneapolis and Buffalo, and at home the neighbors put in and cared for my farm while I was in jail. Thank God for them. But Lamson was a bitter enemy to me. Father Plant and others started a public subscription for me, but Lamson roasted them for making a martyr of me and creating a maudlin sentiment. You mustn't show any feeling for a man, even if he's kept in jail 6 months, his family is broken up, and it cost me over $1,000 to defend myself. It's too bad that Elder Murray's children can't be educated, or Alex McVitie's can't have a new piano. I don't know what Wooly and Iggy wanted the reward for, but they didn't hang me. I was sure they wouldn't. Detective Howard said they had no case, and even Judge Wendell, who made $500 out of the trial, said there was no case, but they had to keep up appearances. I have talked longer than I meant to. I will now ask for a collection, whatever you want to give. Several were asked to pass the hat, but declined. A voice cried, "Take it yourself, Joe." He then passed the hat and received a very liberal collection. There were about 300 present.
Thank you, Jeff. That was fabulous. I really appreciate your doing it, and it means so much coming from a descendant. Thank you. Thank you. Here, Joanne, our photographer, would like to remind you of the sign up if you would like a copy of all these photographs that she's taking today.
Okay, so Mike, you came from the farthest distance today, driving. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you're related to the family, and where you've come from.
Well, my name is Mike Holder, and I live in Otterburn, Indiana. And I'm not a Boxall descendant, but I have kind of a unique situation. I'm related to both of William Boxall's wives, Rachel Nelson and then Lydia Oliver, just by coincidence. Although I guess it's not that big of a coincidence because the two wives were actually related. Rachel's great-grandfather and Lydia's great-great-grandfather were the same man, Abraham Nelson from Northampton County, North Carolina.
Okay.
So that was their connection. If I were to bet, there's no way to know, but I would guess that the Boxall and Oliver family, that they were well connected and probably good friends, and I would assume that they all came up to Minnesota at the same time. I know they came approximately the same time, I just don't know that they came, but if I were to bet, I would say they all moved up here together from Grant County, Indiana, Van Buren Township, which is an area I'm real familiar with. It's only about an hour from where I live in Indiana, and that would be it. So again, that's my connection, and it's just been real interesting to be here today and meet so many of the Boxall family members.
Yeah. Have you had any real surprises today, or any enlightenments, or anything that has been just as expected?
Meeting so many people, I expected that because genealogists were a pretty nice group of people usually.
Yeah.
And it was fun exchanging stories and talking, but I think touring the Boxall home was just very, very amazing, and I had never really thought a lot about it. I guess I just in the back of my mind assumed that the house was long gone. You would, being over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You would just, like I said, I just thought the house would be gone, but the fact that the current owners were gracious enough to open it up and give us tours, and and it just made it that much more meaningful. So that was a very pleasant surprise, something I didn't really expect.
Wonderful. So,
Yeah.
well, thanks for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you again some
Definitely,
other
my
time.
pleasure.
Okay, thanks Mike.
Yep.
Really had a sense of humor. And one time, part of the family came to visit Henry and Rachel, but Henry and Rachel were not at home. So they went out in the hen house and got chickens and killed them and cleaned them and came in the house and got vegetables from the garden and fixed a really nice supper Sunday dinner. And then they walked off and left with everything on the table. And Grandma was a feisty person, Grandma Taylor. And my dad always used to say that Henry was telling a story and Grandma Taylor said, "Shut up, you damn fool, I'm telling this one." But that being said, both Henry and Rachel were born in 1871, and they both died in 1948. They had a long and happy marriage.
Do you also want to share their nicknames and how
Well,
they...
I don't know how they got those nicknames. I know they had them.
Margie told me. Does Margie want to tell that
Margie?
story? How they got their nicknames? Okay. Shall we?
They raised turkeys and guinea hens.
Yeah, that's right. Now that you say it, yeah. They raised turkeys and guinea hens.
So they called them...
Guinea and turk.
Yes. That was their nicknames?
Yeah.
Guinea and turk, yes. All right. Anybody else?
A lot of Germans from Prussia, so and I think you all are mostly Irish and English. So anyway, one of the kernels that I found was, I believe in the research of a Robert Boxall, who is out of the Twin Cities area, and he had mentioned that it was family legend that John D. Boxall, who would be the father of William Thomas and all the Indiana Boxalls, his mother was supposedly buried alive. So I haven't come across any more information supporting that, but I just thought that was a tidbit to throw out there. And for all of you research hounds, if you track down any of those clues, I would sure be interested to hear them. Also, let me see if I can think of which side of the family that was. I do know that the descendants of Joe Boxall, Gladys Farrell, which would be Joe's son Harold's wife, comes from a long line of rather distinguished people, kings and queens of England and France and Spain and Ireland and Scotland. So that was kind of interesting that she ended up here in Howard Lake. Along with some other information, there were some ties to Richard Nixon and yeah, something like that. And basically, if you trace your family history back to North Carolina and Virginia in the colonial times, the real early colonial times, you're related to everybody. And so the family line's kind of traced down that way. One myth to kind of dispel is that there's an idea out there that the Boxall family and is related by blood to Mr. Billy Ray Cyrus, and for those of you who are really young, Hannah Montana. And I hate to disappoint anybody, but that is just simply not true. Mary Ann Boxall, who was one of William T's daughters, married a Calvin Cyrus, and Calvin Cyrus was a cousin to Billy Ray Cyrus's great-great-great-grandfather, something like that. So there's not a blood relation, there is a marital relation, but probably not strong enough to get you concert tickets or a recording contract. So I don't think I have anything.
That was it? Okay, those are very interesting. Okay, all right.
We have a question that just